everybody, welcome back to Shakespeare Sunday. I'm Miss Douglas and today we're going to be reading William Shakespeare's Othello, rewritten by Andrew Matthews and Tony Ross. Our setting for today is in Cyprus in the 16th century. Our cast list is relatively small. We've got Othello the Moor of Venice, we've got Desdemona, Othello's wife, got Iago, who's Othello's ensign, Emilia, which is Iago's wife, Cassio, which is Othello's lieutenant, and Bianca, who is in love with Cassio. So the play of Othello is really about Iago being a very jealous person, and ruins Othello's life because Iago thinks that Othello deserves it. Iago feels that he should have been picked to be Othello's lieutenant instead of Cassio. Iago thinks that Desdemona should be his wife, but instead he married her best friend Emilia. The whole play is really just a mess, and it ends with a lot of death and a lot of tragedy due to Iago's meddling. This is a reading of Othello. Othello the Moor was living proof that the colour of a man's skin is less important than his courage and determination. He had travelled widely, facing wonders and terrors in jungles and deserts. Captured and sold into slavery, he made his escape and joined the army of the city-state of Venice. His bravery and cool-headedness in battle won him steady promotion, until at last he was made a general. And then something totally unexpected happened. Othello fell in love with beautiful young Desdemona, daughter of Brabantino, a Venetian nobleman, and his love was returned. Years of soldiering had left Othello unprepared for love, and his new emotions almost overwhelmed him. Desdemona and Othello married in secret, knowing that Brabantio would object because of the difference in their races. When their secret was revealed, Brabantio was bitterly angry, not least at the way in which his cherished daughter had deceived him, but he could do nothing to separate the lovers. Instead, the Venetian state ordered Othello to take command of a garrison on the island of Cyprus, and he took his bride with him. As their ship left harbour, the couple were blissfully happy, believing that they were at the start of a wonderful new life together. In reality, they were sailing towards a tragedy that would destroy them both. On a warm, moonlit night, Ensign Iago and Private Rodrigo were standing guard on the battlements of the Venetian garrison. Rodrigo was a new recruit, young and impulsive, and Iago had given him enough sips from a hip flask of brandy to make the private talkative and feel sorry for himself. "I've loved Desdemona for years," he groaned. "I wanted to wed her, but her father told me I wasn't good enough. After she married Othello, I joined the army and bribed a captain to order me to Cyprus so I could be near her. Seeing her with Othello is driving me mad. What can I do?" Tears welled up in Rodrigo's eyes. "Be patient," advised Iago. "Desdemona and Othello were quick to fall in love, and they'll tire of each other just as quickly. When that happens, you'll be among the first to know." "How?" Rodrigo asked, with a drunken frown. "My wife Emilia is Desdemona's maid," said Iago. "Desdemona confides in her, and Emilia confides in me. When I give you the word, you can use me to send her love tokens, jewels and the like. Her heart will soften, and then—" Rodrigo hiccuped. "Why would you bother to help me?" "I hate Othello," Iago said, stony-faced. "It's not right for a Moor to command men like us. I've been a soldier half my life. I deserve to be Othello's lieutenant, but he promoted Cassio instead of me. Helping you to woo Othello's life will be my revenge." Iago fell silent, but his words continued in his mind. "A wife for a wife, Moor," he thought grimly. "I don't know if those rumours about you and Emilia are true, but I know how jealousy gnaws and burns, and how quickly a doubt can become a green-eyed monster. A gentle hint that Desdemona is untrue will be enough. Jealousy will do the rest." The following evening, Iago called on Cassio and greeted him with a brisk salute. "Sorry to disturb you, sir, but some townspeople have sent us a crate of wine to drink the general's health," he said. "Would you care to join us in the mess hall?" Cassio frowned. "I have to go and watch soon," he said. Iago smiled encouragingly. "Not for another hour, sir. You can spare a few minutes, surely." "To tell you the truth, I don't have a good head for drink," admitted Cassio. "Even one couple—" "Don't worry, sir," chuckled Iago. "The local wine is no stronger than grape juice." "Very well," Cassio agreed, "but I shan't stay long." Iago had lied about the strength of the wine, for he had secretly topped up every bottle with brandy. In the mess hall, the men drank a toast to Othello. Then Rodrigo proposed a toast to Desdemona. Private Montano raised his cup to Iago, and before long everyone was singing raucously. Cassio gestured for silence. There was sweat on his pale face, and he peered down his nose to keep from seeing double. "Gentlemen, I must do my duty," he declared. "You see how clear-headed I am, so no one can accuse me of being drunk." His mood suddenly changed, and he gripped the hilt of his sword. "Does anyone dare to accuse me?" he barked. "No one here, sir," Iago said gently. As Cassio lurched across the hall, Iago turned to Rodrigo. "Go after him," Iago whispered. "Tell him he's too drunk to be on duty." "After what he just said?" gasped Rodrigo. "Make him lose his temper and lead him back here," Iago murmured. "It's part of my scheme to bring you and Desdemona together." Rodrigo hurried away. A minute later, angry shouting was heard. Rodrigo scampered into the mess hall, pursued by Cassio, who had drawn his sword. Montano tried to restrain the lieutenant, and the two men tussled. Cassio accidentally gashed Montano's side with his sword. Soldiers bumped into each other in an attempt to separate the two. There were curses, blows, and more fighting broke out. Iago smirked to see the uproar he had caused, but quickly straightened his face as Othello stormed into the hall. "Stop on pain of death!" Othello roared. The men ceased fighting and stood with bowed heads. "What's this, Cassio, and why is this man bleeding?" Othello demanded. "I can't speak, sir," said Cassio, slurring his words. Othello turned to Iago. "You're an honest man, Iago. Tell me the truth," he said. "It all happened so fast, sir," said Iago. "We were all happy and singing, then Lieutenant Cassio charged in, chasing after someone or another. Montano tried to calm him down, and all at once everyone was fighting." Othello glowered at Cassio. "Lieutenant Cassio, I discharge you from the army for being drunk on duty. Leave the garrison at dawn." Othello swept out. The other soldiers slunk away, leaving Iago and Cassio alone together. Cassio buried his face in his hands. "My career is over," he grizzled. "I've lost my reputation." "You'll get it back," said Iago, placing his hand on Cassio's shoulder. "You're a friend of the general's wife, aren't you?" Cassio raised his head and nodded. "Go to her and explain what happened. You're a young man who had too much to drink and made a mistake you'll never make again," Iago said, smoothly. "Desdemona will be sorry for you, and she'll persuade the general to reinstate you." "Oh, gods!" exclaimed Cassio. "Thanks, Iago. You're the wisest, most trustworthy man I've ever met." Iago smiled. Next day, in the shimmering heat of noon, Iago carried a satchel of dispatches to Othello's office and waited while the general inspected them. "Did you ask Cassio to report to you today, sir?" Iago inquired casually. "No." "Why?" said Othello. "I saw him talking to your wife earlier on." Othello looked up from his papers. "What if he was?" Iago squirmed, as if embarrassed. "It seemed to me that they sat a little too close together, sir, and when Cassio kissed your wife's hand, I thought his lips lingered longer than some would consider proper." "What are you suggesting?" Othello asked sharply. "Nothing, sir," exclaimed Iago. "The last thing I want is to stir up trouble between man and wife. Perhaps I should have kept my mouth shut, but I'm a plain man, and speak as I find." "Yes," Othello said thoughtfully. "I know you do. Leave me now, Iago." When Iago had departed, Othello stared blankly at the wall facing him. Iago wouldn't have mentioned seeing Cassio with Desdemona unless he suspected them of something, he thought. Could it be? Cassio is a younger man than I am, and he is white. Does Desdemona regret marrying me? Othello felt sick with doubt. His world had once been solid, founded on military discipline. Since he had been married, his life had seemed less certain. Though he was overjoyed to receive it, he did not understand why he had won Desdemona's love. Could he lose it just as mysteriously? At that moment, Desdemona entered the office. "We must talk about Cassio," she said. "I spoke to him this morning and—" "Not now, Desdemona," said Othello, rubbing his forehead. "I have a headache." From her sleeve, Desdemona drew a pretty handkerchief embroidered with strawberries. "Let me bandage you with this, my love," she cooed. "It's too small," said Othello. "Look at her eyes. They're as innocent as a child." He thought, yet they're the same eyes that deceived her father. Desdemona held out a hand. "Let's go to dinner." As they left the office, neither Desdemona nor Othello noticed her handkerchief drop to the floor in the corridor outside. A little later, Amelia and Iago strolled by. Amelia saw the handkerchief and stopped to pick it up. "What's that?" asked Iago. "My lady's favourite handkerchief," Amelia replied. "She worries when she misplaces it." "Let me borrow it for a day or so, will you?" said Iago. "I'll use it to play a trick on someone." Amelia gave her husband the handkerchief. "I hope it's not a cruel trick, like the one played on you when you thought I had been unfaithful with the general," she said. Iago answered with a grin, and his mind was weaving nets of dark thoughts. Othello walked alone in the cool of the evening, hoping to rid himself of the jealous thoughts that had tortured him all day. As he crossed the parade ground, he met Iago. "How are you, General?" said Iago. "You look—" "My mind is full of fire and poison," Othello burst out. "I would rather know for sure that Desdemona is unfaithful than suffer these doubts." Iago leaned closer. "I may have proof, sir. The other day I saw Cassio with your wife's handkerchief, the one embroidered with strawberries." Othello's face fell. "The first love token I ever gave her. She swore she would always keep it." "Listen, sir," said Iago. "Your wife told Amelia that Cassio means to see you in the morning, to beg for his commission back. I'll stop him under the window of your office and ask him what's going on between him and your wife. If you watch from the window, you'll see how he reacts." Othello clasped Iago to him. "Honest Iago," he said, "at least I know I can rely on you." Othello could not see the icy loathing in Iago's eyes. Cassio was anxious when he entered the garrison the next day. He concentrated so hard on what he would say to the general that he did not notice Iago approaching, or Othello spying on him from his office window. Iago winked at Cassio. "Certain young lady is looking for you," Iago said. "Bianca?" said Cassio, rolling his eyes. "She follows me everywhere. I found a lady's handkerchief in my lodgings yesterday. I have no idea where it came from, but when I gave it to Bianca, she was as pleased as if it were a diamond ring." "Talking of rings, some of the men are taking bets you'll wed her soon," Iago said. Cassio threw his head back and laughed. "You don't marry women like Bianca," he exclaimed, "not if you have any sense." Othello's pulse pounded in his ears. Look at him laugh, he thought. He must be dragging about how eagerly Desdemona gave herself to him. Othello was not the only one spying on Cassio. Down in the parade ground, Bianca had emerged from a shadowy doorway and was glaring at her lover with her hands on her hips. "So that's what you think of me," she seethed. "Well, don't come sniffing around me again, and take this back." She plucked a handkerchief from the front of her dress and flung it at Cassio. The handkerchief was so delicate that it floated as it fell, unfolding like a bird opening its wings. Othello recognized the handkerchief as Desdemona's. Overpowered by shock, he uttered a loud cry before collapsing in a swoon. Iago revived Othello a few minutes later and helped him into a chair. Othello's eyes were glassy and his hands trembled. Where's Cassio?" he croaked. "Gone," Iago said. "I came to the office as soon as I heard you call. Saw you were ill and told Cassio to return to his lodgings until he was sent for. You saw me question him? Yes, and I saw the handkerchief. The lying dog, growled Iago. When I think of how you trusted him and... Cassio must die, Othello whispered. Leave the little sewer rat to me, sir, urged Iago. What will you say to your wife? My wife? Othello exclaimed. My wife! He clenched his shaking hands into fists. Oh, this is sweet, gloated Iago. Tonight I'll get Rodrigo drunk enough to believe anything and convince him that he has to kill Cassio to win Desdemona. We'll wait in the alley near the inn where Cassio dines, and when he appears, Rodrigo will run him through. All I have to do is slip my dagger between Rodrigo's ribs, and no one will know that I had anything to do with Cassio's murder. Desdemona had finished saying her prayers when Othello entered the bedroom that night. She went to kiss her husband, but stopped when she saw the grimness in his eyes. What's wrong, my love? She asked. Have I done something to offend you? Where is the handkerchief I gave you as my love token? Said Othello. Reluctant to admit that she had lost the handkerchief, Desdemona frowned. Let me see. Where can I have left it? Othello seized her by the shoulders. You left it in Cassio's hands when you took him as your lover, he declared. Desdemona stared in his disbelief. Are you mad? She cried. What are you saying? Cassio is my friend, nothing more. No more lies, bellowed Othello. You have broken your wedding vows, and now you must die. He hurled Desdemona onto the bed and pressed a pillow over her face. A shadow seemed to fall over Othello's mind. He saw, heard, and felt nothing. Gradually, he became aware of a knocking at the door, and Amelia's voice calling out, Murder, my lord! Othello stood up stiffly and crossed the room and opened the door. What murder? He said. Rodrigo attacked Cassio, and Cassio killed him, gabbled Amelia. Cassio was wounded, but he'll live, so... Amelia caught sight of Desdemona's body. What has happened? She squealed. I killed her, Othello said harshly. Amelia's screams attracted Iago and Montano. Montano gazed in horror at Desdemona. What's all the screaming about? Iago demanded. I killed my unfaithful wife, said Othello. I found her out when she gave her handkerchief to her lover Cassio. You're wrong, my lord, Amelia sobbed. Be quiet, woman, snapped Iago. I found the handkerchief yesterday, Amelia told Othello. Iago took it to play a trick on someone. The trick was played on you. Moving faster than a blink, Iago stepped over to Amelia, stabbed her through the heart, and ran for the room as she tumbled to the floor. But he did not get far, for he ran into a troop of soldiers who had come to arrest him. Cassio had seen him stab Rodrigo and had reported it. Iago was bound with ropes and marched back into Othello's presence. Othello looked hard at the man who had deceived him so utterly. A trick, Iago? He said hoarsely. Are you human? Or a devil? If you're a devil, then you can't be killed. Othello unsheathed his sword and lunged at Iago, who shouted in pain as he jumped back. A soldier struck the sword from Othello's hand. Iago laughed scornfully. I'm bleeding, General, but I'm not dead, he sneered. Othello sat on the bed and took Desdemona's lifeless hands in his own. I killed her, he howled. I believed Iago's lies and now she's dead. Where am I? Where is the man who used to be Othello? Othello reached into his jerkin, brought out a knife and plunged it into his chest. He slumped across Desdemona and died with his lips touching hers. A life for a life more, Iago said contemptuously. He did not struggle as the soldiers led him away. Othello and Desdemona were buried together in the garrison churchyard. Iago confessed his crimes and was executed. His corpse was burned, and its ashes were scattered in the wind. Our main themes throughout Othello is race and jealousy, So in Othello, the main character, is referred to as a Moor throughout the play. So a Moor is a non-white European in the Middle Ages. It's a variety of people, so Muslim Europeans, Arabs, and North African Berbers. They were all referred to as Moors, so it's really quite a varied group of people. And the play reflects racism because Iago doesn't believe, and he says it quite a bit, a Moor like Othello should be able to have a wife like Desdemona or have a high rank within the army. So because he is a Moor, someone who is non-white, he should not have the higher rankings, and that's why the cover, if it focuses, yeah, there we go, has a darker person. Within the play, obviously, jealousy is a really big one as well. So jealousy as an obsession, and it's all Iago, really. Or I think Iago the parrot from Aladdin. No, we're talking about Iago from Othello. He's obsessed to become better than Othello. Thinks he should have been promoted to a lieutenant once, rather than Cassio. He thinks that Emilia and Othello were once an item. Like, he's got this whole jealousy, like, oh, you were once with my wife. And Iago makes Othello doubt Desdemona's faithfulness, and whether she's cheated on Othello. So because he's so jealous about Othello having Desdemona, he turns around and goes, "Oh, but has she been faithful?" Which then in turn drives Othello in madness and jealousy of, how can my wife be with another man, to extremes, and he kills his wife Desdemona. And then of course after this he discovers her innocence and feels incredible guilt. So there are a few adaptations that I found for Othello which were a little bit varied. There was the 1965 British film with Laurence Olivier and Dame Maggie Smith. So Laurence Olivier played this role in blackface. So Laurence Olivier is a white player, and in the 1960s they believed it was still appropriate to transform a character's skin colour. So I have not seen this, I'm probably not going to. I don't support any racism things ever. It's the only Shakespeare film also in Oscar history to date in which all principal cast members were nominated. So Laurence Olivier has been quite popular in many Shakespeare films, but this Othello has actually caused a lot of consequences as such in the current day. There is a 1995 film also titled Othello with Lawrence Fishburne, Irene Jacob and Kenneth Branagh. We talk about Kenneth Branagh a lot in Shakespeare adaptations because he is in a lot of them and directing a few of them. This is the first major screen production with a black actor as Othello. It actually follows not this book, but the play really quite closely. There was Othello in 1997 by the Shakespeare Theatre Company, which made it a photo-negative production. So that had a white actor, Patrick Stewart, playing Othello, and his attempt to assimilate into a black society, which then of course led to a lot of questioning about whether Othello could be a woman, or inverting the gender of the whole cast to explore gender questions within Shakespearean text, so flipping Othello to become a woman and then everyone else is female as well. Well, then there's also O, which is a 2001 film, which is a modern adaptation where Odin James, aka Othello, is competing with Hugo, aka Iago, in a basketball competition to get MVP, most valuable player, become star basketball player at the school, so a big popularity contest. And in this, Desi, who is meant to be Desdemona, is accused of cheating on Odin with a teammate, Michael Cassio. And then the jealousy from Hugo, aka Iago, follows a very similar plot to the play in Othello, in which all the characters follow their same endings. Again, please check the ratings on all these adaptations that I put forward. If it is not appropriate for your age group, please do not watch them.